Thank you. Thank you. It's lovely. Lovely to see all of these faces across my screen. So thank you for all showing up. And don't know how much you know about polyvagal theory. I'm sure there's a range of responses from new to it to using it in my practice. Part of my work has been to take Steve Borges's beautiful, elegant polyvagal theory, the theory that he developed, and translate it so that it's easy to use for clinicians, to bring it into the language that we can use in our therapy practices. So I'll just do a very brief overview and then talk about what we're going to be doing in the three webinars. But polyvagal theory really is a theory of the autonomic nervous system. And I know Julia is excited about the parasympathetic nervous system because part of that is digestive. So that's perfect in your world. In our world, the nervous system, we see our clients come to us with dysregulated nervous systems, right? If we were going to look at diagnosis through the lens of polyvagal theory, we would see nervous systems that are dysregulated in a variety of different ways. And as we do look through the lens of the nervous system, we help our clients understand that their biology is responding in this way because there's an abundance of cues of danger in their world. And so their nervous system is enacting a survival response. And it makes perfect sense when you look at it through the lens of the nervous system, to help clients understand that they're not choosing this. Their nervous system is choosing it for them, that it doesn't mean anything about their motivation. There's no moral meaning attached to this. We humans, the brain makes motivation and moral meaning. The nervous system simply acts. And so when we begin to help our clients understand this, it's a very depathologizing and a way of being, and it helps people let go of the shame and blame that keep them stuck in their patterns of thinking and behaving. And then once that happens, once there's a bit of relaxation coming into those patterns, curiosity emerges, right? And curiosity is what we're looking for as therapists. When you have a client who you have that moment when they go, you can feel that bit of curiosity coming, you know that their system is now open and ready to engage with you. So, in polyvagal theory, we have a way to map that and track that and shape the system so that there is more of that regulation and curiosity available for our clients. The nervous system is really the heart of our daily experience. Most of us are trained to work top down from the brain, from the story. And what I want to tell you is the story comes from your embodied state, right? The information travels the pathways from your body to your brain. 80% of the information traveling this parasympathetic, this autonomic pathway is coming from the body to the brain. And then the brain takes that information and makes a story to make sense of what's happening in the body. So even though we like to think that our beautiful brains are running the show, in fact, they aren't. In fact, they are responding to what's happening in the body. So polyvagal theory, through these three organizing principles, hierarchy, neuroception, and co-regulation, gives us a roadmap to help our clients begin to understand what is happening in their nervous system and how it's impacting, how it's shaping the way that they navigate their daily living. So just to give you a very brief capsule of those three organizing principles, hierarchy is the way we move in and out of regulation. And Steve's beautiful theory really defines, shows us how we move from regulation first to fight and flight, that extra mobilizing energy. And if that doesn't solve the problem that we're trying to meet in that moment, we then fall into dorsal disappearing collapse, numbing shutdown. Right? And that is the order in which this works. It's the evolutionary order in which the system was built, and it's the order in which we then dissolve. It's called evolution and dissolution. Evolution says dorsal came first, this, excuse me, hibernating, disappearing. going through the world in a slow way, and when we are prompted by a cue of danger, we disappear. We become immobile. We become invisible. You know, if you think about an ancient tortoise, you know the way they kind of go slowly through the world, and when they get scared, they go into their shell, right? And the lovely thing about that image is, what do we do to help a tortoise come out of its shell? Right? I had learned this from a client. We were playing around with it because she went to dorsal often, and we decided, well, you don't pick up the turtle and shake it, right? Or you don't knock on the shell and say, come out, right? And that's what we have to remember as therapists when our clients go to that place of disappearing, becoming immobile, shut down, collapse. We don't want to go knock on the shell or shake them. That's not how we get a nervous system to come alive again, right? We help a client by being with, by bringing our regulated system to be near their system so that their system can feel that it's not alone in that place. Because the trauma experience is that we get dysregulated, we go to a survival response, but we go alone and we're stuck there. And so, you know, my clients would say, for that dorsal place, I'm alone, lost, abandoned, where no one will ever find me. That's that experience of being shut down, collapsed. And so the antidote for that is to make sure that a client is not alone and lost, where they know we have found them, we are with them, and we are going to accompany them back out of that state into regulation. So then if we move up one step on the hierarchy, the way evolution created our nervous system, we go to fight and flight. And that's the more familiar survival response, right? And that's the survival response that was in place before Steve developed Polyvagal Theory. His gift to we therapists really is this mapping of dorsal, because so many of our clients go to that place of shutdown, collapse, disconnection. And we had no way to understand it through our biology or through the client's response, except through stress. It was either we were regulated or stressed. So sympathetic, that fight flight, the next to emerge, was built on top of dorsal. And then at the top of the hierarchy is ventral, which is this place of safety and regulation, of connection. And the connection that comes when our nervous system takes us to ventral, I call it home, when we come home to ventral, because I do believe that our nervous system has an inherent longing to be there and knowing how to get there. In our work, we are all helping our clients become, let go of their suffering, and in my language, become regulated, right? And in order to do that, you know, my belief is we're not adding anything to their system. We're just uncovering what's already there. We're helping them rediscover and reconnect to what is already there for them. So we come to that place of ventral, and the 4 pathways of connection that are available to us from that place of regulation are connection to self, connection to others, connection to the world around us, and connection to spirit. And what the polyvagal theory tells us is that unless we are anchored in that place of ventral, when we leave that place and go to survival, either sympathetic or dorsal, we then are unable to connect to any of those 4 pathways. And not because we don't want to, but because our biology will not allow it. So when you're sitting across from a client and they are, you know, we used to say, you know, maybe they were non-compliant, or they didn't want it enough, or they weren't trying hard enough, right? Well, we look through the lens of the nervous system, we say their biology is not supporting this at the moment, right? And so our job then becomes to bring cues of safety in so that their nervous system can meet us in that place and support them in engaging in therapy. So that's the hierarchy, those 3 states that we're always traveling through. And you're near the end of your day, many of you. I'm in the middle of my day. And if you think about your day so far, you will notice that you traveled through some flavor of those states many times already today, right? You've been regulated. You've had some moments of too much energy in your system, that sympathetic fight flight, and you've had some moments of some flavor of dorsal, you know, and dorsal is sometimes just simply being here, but not really being here, right? Just sort of going through the motions. That's a flavor of dorsal, right? So just think all the states that you have been in already today. And the thing that makes us resilient is that when we travel away from ventral, we don't get stuck there, right? That the goal is never to opt to be always in a ventral state. That is never the goal for anybody. The goal is to know when we're leaving and to have a pathway back home, right? To have a pathway back to ventral so that we don't get stuck in survival. And that's the difference between a system that has a dysregulated, rigid response or a flexible response that brings resilience. Resilience, which is a big thing we're using now in therapy, resilience is an autonomic nervous system outcome. It's an outcome of a nervous system that can flexibly come back to ventral, right? That dysregulates and comes back, dysregulates and comes back. And that's what we're trying to bring for our clients, that capacity to keep coming back. So that's hierarchy. The second is neuroception, which I find to be a beautiful word. Steve developed that word, he created that word because there was not a word that talked about how the nervous system takes in information. So how it does it is through an underlying process that does not involve the thinking parts of our brain. Because even though the nervous system has projections that connect to the cortex and connect to limbic, it basically is a brainstem structure, right? And so how does it do what it does? Well, neuroception is the way that it's taking in cues from what I call inside, outside, and between. It's taking in cues from inside your body, from outside in the environment, and from between your nervous system and another nervous system. And it does that micro moment to micro moment. And when it takes those in, the outcome of that is that you are moved from state to state. So neuroception is really what starts this whole process of us being regulated or dysregulated. And we have to bring perception to neuroception in order to do anything with it, which is a great reminder that really working this way is making the implicit experiences that we know are going on with our clients and with us in the therapeutic relationship, and making them explicit, bringing them into explicit awareness so that we can talk about them, we can use them, we can shape them. So neuroception, neuro for neural, and ception for awareness is a really lovely word that I hope you all will become familiar with. And then the third, co-regulation, is really, I mean, we clinicians have known forever that the therapeutic relationship really is the foundation of any sort of therapy. Whatever kind of therapy we're practicing, doesn't matter. It's about the relationship, right? The Polyvagal Theory really shows us why that's true. And this is about co-regulation and what autonomic attunement, right? Not just brain to brain, but nervous system to nervous system attunement is really what we're talking about. I like to call it autonomic intimacy that we move into with our clients. This truly shared experience below the level of our language, right? It's happening. Two systems are in communication with a different language going on, and co-regulation is what we call a biological imperative, which means that it's something we can't survive without. Right, and we know this from the studies of babies who come into the world and aren't met by a caring, loving other. Right, we know it from the studies of Romanian orphanages and many of the research that has gone on. You know it because you have adult clients sitting with you whose nervous systems can't come into co-regulation, where you feel dangerous to their nervous system because you're a human being, right? Because their experience with others is that people are dangerous. And that's where we start building our therapeutic relationship is not only reassuring the client through language, but reassuring their nervous system that I am a safe other, that my commitment is to be regulated, to stay regulated, and to offer that regulating presence and that regulating energy to them. And that's often a missing experience for our clients, right? They're used to being around people who are dysregulated. And if any of you work with kids, you know that, when you're working with a kid, you really have to work with the system they're embedded in, because it's really not about the kid. It's really about the grown-ups, the adults, and what are their nervous systems doing, right? If those nervous systems are dysregulated, your kid client is really going to struggle because he doesn't have the safe base on a biological level, right? So, I worked in a group practice, and we would take in families, and I usually got one of the adults, and my colleagues would get the kids. And they would come to my office fairly frequently and say, Deb, if you would just fix your client, mine would be fine. And I would say, I know that. I'm working on it, but your client's like 6, and their nervous system's only had 6 years to do this. Mine's 52, and I have a little more work to do. So, which takes me to that other place of saying that, when we discovered neuroplasticity, it was just a wonderful thing for the therapy world, because we discovered that, brains can actually rewire. So now I know what I'm doing as a therapist. I'm rewiring brains, right? I'm not just helping a client accommodate to what their brain is doing. I'm helping it rewire. The same is true for the nervous system. We have research that says your nervous system reshapes, and you have more access to ventral, and you have more ability to manage both the tonic level of ventral can increase, which means your set point can increase, but we have more capacity to manage the phasic influence of these survival states, so we can recover more quickly. We go dysregulate less intensely, less often. So we have research in the laboratory that's shown us this, which again, when I tell that to my clients, we can reshape your system. It is a lovely, hopeful experience for our clients. And I think for many of our clients, hope is what, we're hope merchants, right? And now I have research and science, and I have a way of being a hope merchant that I feel very confident in. And I, for me, because people come to me because this is what I do, but I love saying to people, the research says, right? It's very reassuring to clients. Many clients say, the research says, or we have a lot of data that tells us, this is not just somebody saying, I can help you. This is saying, I know I can help you, and here's why. So that's one of the things I love about the science of polyvagal theory. We call it the science of connection. And you guys are all trained in wonderful ways of working. And what I'd like to say is that polyvagal theory is not a competition or a replacement for any of those ways of working. It is something that sits underneath the ways you've been trained and gives the reasons, gives the science underneath why what you're doing is working or not working. I like to know when it's not working too, and I can go back to those organizing principles and go, it's not working because there's not a neuroception of safety in the room. So again, if you choose to join the webinar, the 3-webinar series, don't worry that you're going to be asked to give up anything you already do. You're going to just be asked to look through the lens of the nervous system and see how does that fit with what I do. And the 3 webinars that we've created really are, the first one will be a very brief overview in a little more depth so that you get an experience of your nervous system, because in the therapy world, our philosophy, I think, is we don't ask our clients to do things that we haven't already done, right? In the polyvagal world, the philosophy is we befriend our own nervous systems first so that we can then help our clients befriend theirs. So in the 3-webinar series, you're going to be getting to know your own nervous system through experiential practices, through worksheets and ways of doing things yourself first, so that you will feel comfortable in taking it into your practice and working with clients. So Julia, I'm looking at the time. How much, where I don't quite remember where we are. So what are we doing?
If you've got more to say, you can go very easily for another 7 minutes, up to sort of 7:30 at our time.
Beautiful.
And then we will open up for questions. And I found Paul, so I will give him a chance.
We found him. He's no longer lost. Good. All right. Well, let me talk for
a but at the moment, if you've got more to say, please feel free.
Sure. Good. Oh, that's a dangerous thing to tell me. I always have something to say. So yeah, I would like to say something about this time in our world and the importance of understanding our nervous systems, because, I'm in the US, as Julia said, and we are certainly in a trifecta of challenges at the moment. We have, an out of control pandemic, which some of you may be experiencing where you are. We have finally turned toward the systemic racism that has been here for centuries and are being asked to do something with it. And we have an election in 4 weeks or something, which is, hopefully going to change something in our world, because it's a very difficult place to live right now. There are a lot of cues of danger coming all the time. And what we see here is you see a lot of people who are in that sympathetic fight experience. And so you see that played out. And in the, I'm not going to wear a mask. I'm going to, be armed. I'm going to all of those experiences. And then you see another large part of the population that is in that dorsal despair and hopelessness, right? And what I come to recognize is that neither one is going to get us anywhere, right? We have to have enough people who are regulated so that we can enter into these conversations safely and we can listen to each other. So in some ways, this is a really important time for us to understand our nervous systems, because rather than looking out and looking at the person across from me and making a moral meaning about that person's behavior, I can look out there and I can say, there's a dysregulated nervous system, right? And that helps me. It doesn't say that I'm not going to hold them responsible for their behavior, but I can look at them a bit differently. And instead of telling them to stop doing what they're doing, my work then becomes, how do I help them find their way home to enough ventral so that they can do something different, right? So, again, I just think it's a time in the world where we really need this understanding. So, yeah. Trying to think if there's anything else I want to say. Are there questions? Because I can certainly respond to questions, which might be.
There are some questions. I just wanted to read a comment from Tracy. I think it's a little difficult to find. Yes, because I can just say that I've experienced it exactly the same way. Tracy says, what a warm, reassuring human being about you, Deb. Just listening is regulating. Thank you, Deb. Bit of free therapy. I've signed November dates to get some more. And I've just listening to you definitely was regulating and incredibly beneficial. So if you don't mind, Deb, I'll give you a few seconds to catch your breath, and I'll pass the microphone to Paul to tell a little bit, say a bit more about you and about the course, and then we'll carry on with questions.
Perfect.
So Paul, I'm trying to unmute you. Yes, I think you are unmuted. Go ahead, please.
I hope so. Can I first apologise about the terrible internet connection I've had here earlier on this evening, which I hope is now sorted. But if I suddenly disappear again, you will know why. Can I just say something which I really wanted to emphasize really in connection with Deb, because I think it's the thing that for me actually makes her quite unique in this particular field. Maybe like you, maybe not like you, I have had a familiarity with polyvagal theory for quite a while, but I'll be absolutely honest and say that I've always been a little bit lacking in knowing what its practical implications actually are for therapy. And I think that actually the thing that is outstanding about Deb is that, in my opinion, she is the leader, basically, at this point in time, in terms of the practical applicability of these particular ideas, in terms of the things that you can actually do that make a difference with your clients. And certainly that's the reason that we sort of organized these particular webcasts with her, because these webcasts, and again, can I just emphasize here, although these are on 3 dates, on the 16th, 23rd and 30th of November, they're running between 2 and 4 in the afternoon UK time. and they are going to be intensely practical. This will really be about Deb introducing us to some of the practical exercises that she's written about. I've put a number of her books up in the chat box now for those of you that were asking about things that she's written. We'll be having an opportunity of seeing that practical application really, and you'll be having an opportunity to practice it as well. I think it's an unusual event. I've certainly not, from my end of things, come across certainly a leading light in polyvagal theory, providing practical to that, of course, we are going to be in the unique position of this traveling across the ocean during the actual time we're actually doing it. So I'm really, I hope that as many of you as possible can join us for that. But
yeah, I think Paul's connection is breaking. Do you experience the same, Paul? A slightly connection is breaking again.
Yeah, I've got messages.
Yeah, I'll move on to questions because
I'll stop.
Sorry, Paul. So a very good question from Thea about working from home via the internet and how acceptable this methodology when we are not face to face with our clients.
Yeah, and thank you. That's a great question. I've just been doing some writing about that actually, because to me, bringing the polyvagal perspective into online work makes it safer and makes it easier for us to understand where our clients are and track what's happening for them. Because, you know, as you're going to find out in our webinar, the first thing we do is we create a map of our nervous system, and we create a map, you know, with our clients. We're going to create a map, and then it becomes a shared language. So, you know, if Julia and I were doing a session and I can only see this much of her, right? And I have no idea what's going on, but my guiding question becomes to Julia once we've made her map. So where are you right now on your map? And she can simply tell me which state or which flavor of state she's in. And it gives me an abundance of information, because I know if she's moved fully to sympathetic or dorsal, my job is to help bring more ventral into the connection. Right. And if she's got some anchoring in ventral, great, let's keep doing the processing that we're doing. So I think it's a really lovely safety net in some ways for us working online. We noticed when Paul was, you know, at the intermittent connection, you know, that happens all the time, and it's a cue of danger to the nervous system. So, you know, how do we build in the safety in order to withstand these things? You know, I'm trying to figure out where I look on my screen, right? Because, you know, Julia's over here, Paul's way down there. And every time I look, because I want to look at your face, and yet I'm probably not looking anywhere. Now I'm looking in the camera, I'm probably looking more at you now. So all of this is happening in our work with clients. So to be able to bring it alive through the lens of the nervous system, and to say, so, you know, how does this land in your nervous system? And so some of the things I do are I don't say, how does this feel, or what are you thinking? Because that's a different system. I usually say, how does this land in your nervous system, or how is your nervous system responding right now? You know, even when we do a check-in. So tell me the autonomic journey you've been on since the last time we met. Right? It's a very different way of connecting, and yeah. So yeah, I do think that it's really helpful in this time, and who knows how long we're going to be doing this, but I imagine for quite a while.
Yeah. In terms of the impact on the training field, I think it will be a long-lasting one, because maybe in some other areas people will start coming face to face, but I'm not sure about the training field, and therapy sort of very close there behind in that respect. Lots and lots of other questions. People are asking, how will it work with time limited when you have only 5 or 6 sessions with client? Can you work in that way?
Yes, yes. And again, what I consider my job to be is to help my clients begin to befriend, understand their nervous system, and then have a basic map of it, because I think we all need to become active operators of our own systems. I think that's the goal. And if I used to do EAP work, and you'd get like 3 sessions and say, well, what am I going to do in 3 sessions? I'm going to help my client understand their states and have a couple of resources so that they can know how to come back into regulation. So even if you only have a few sessions, for me, that's the basic goal. Understand how your nervous system is organized, and understand some of the things you might do for your nervous system to be able to not go into that survival response.
Mm. Mm. Something what you've already touched upon, Priyanka is asking how this works with other therapeutic approaches, and what role does it play in complementing other therapies. If you just give us some examples of incorporating polyvagal approach to other.
Yeah. If you think of any therapy, and we have an alphabet soup of therapies, don't we? I'm trained in SP, which is sensory motor, and IFS, internal family systems, and we probably have AEDP and ACT and CBT. We have all of these letters, right? Whatever therapy you're doing, you are having to engage with your client's nervous system, and you may not have been taught that, right? If you're in a more top-down modality, you may not have been taught that in order for top-down to work, the nervous system has to be in a state that supports it. Otherwise, you are fighting against the nervous system, and that's a fight you are never going to win, ever. The nervous system is always going to win that fight. So to understand how the nervous system can be an ally in the kind of therapy you're doing, and how underneath that therapy the nervous system is creating a platform, I think is incredibly useful. So, polyvagal, I have created ways to bring it alive in therapy. I actually have some ways that I do full sessions there following a polyvagal model, but it's really not a model of therapy. It really is a platform for people to understand, so that when they put therapy on top of it, it works better. It also helps you when your therapy stops, because we've all had that situation where, wait a minute, nothing's working, right? It helps you, give you the answers as to why, right? Because it's the science underneath that. Yeah.
Thank you. Some people already say that they are sitting here buying your books.
Well, thank you.
We'll come to the course.
Nice. That will be lovely.
Wendy is asking, what kind of things would you do with a client who is over-evaluating a threat, stuck in dorsal? If just a few words, just to show.
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting because that's neuroception, overreacting to something that is likely a familiar cue from the past. Because when we have an over response in the present, I always like to look to the past. Something familiar has reached out and grabbed us. And the thing that I bring to neuroception to help clients with that is what I call discernment. And so you bring perception to neuroception and add discernment. And the question that I simply ask my clients is, in this moment, in this place, with me or with whoever you're with, is that level of response needed? Right? So it helps them come into the present. You have to have some ventral to be in the present, helps them come into the present, and they begin to look around and be able to say, oh, maybe that isn't needed right now, right? Because the nervous system is simply enacting the survival response, and often can be in a mismatch based on our past experience.
Thank you. People are also asking us that some people say they are busy whole day on Mondays when you are going to do your course, and whether the recording will be available. If you are booked on the course, as you know, after the course, all people who are booked are getting 60 days access to recording. So I am not saying that we will be selling the recording afterwards. But if you booked on the course, you will get access to the recording. So make a decision now rather than hoping that it will come about later. So I'll just remind you of the dates. It's going to be Mondays between 2 and 4 UK time, afternoon between 2 and 4, 2-hour sessions. We've learned it hard way that doing the whole day Zoom sessions is incredibly exhausting, and it's very interesting, the difference, isn't it? Whole day in the room seems okay, and should be easy on Zoom, but it isn't.
No.
Yes, 3 days on Mondays between 2 and 4. It's 16th, 23rd and 30th of November. You still have time to rearrange your diary and come to the course.
One thing I'd like to say is that, you'll have handouts and you'll have worksheets, and you'll also have an invitation to practice between the Mondays so that you get the flavor of what that's like.
That's fantastic. And actually, it is the best way to learn.
It is. It really is. Yeah.
In small portions with practice in between, that's the best way to learn. So probably.
It's also the way the nervous system is reshaped. So I think that's nice to recognize that the nervous system doesn't make this one gigantic change, and everything is different. We do small things often over and over and over. That's how we reshape our patterns. And you're right, that's how we learn. So in some ways, this enforced Zoom environment has allowed us to do some of these things in better ways.
Yeah, I find it fascinating, because in the past, of course, it would be 2 days together because people had to travel to a central point in London. And now we've got sort of certain advantages. So let's use them if we can. Any other questions? Yeah, Paul is answering questions about everything.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, no, and I'm excited because some of the things we're going to do in the 3 webinar series are we'll do the basic mapping from the first book, and then we're going to do some of the exercises from the second book. So it's kind of fun to sort of play around with new things and see them in a group. And it's, we will do some we're going to do 2 hours without taking a break. So I'll just forewarn your nervous system of that, because 2 hours is not a lot of time. So we'll do that, and hopefully we'll kind of learn something, and then you'll go off into breakout rooms and have a chance to practice with someone, and then come back and debrief and try again. So there'll be a lot of really live, in the moment experiential learning, which again is, our responsibility as therapists is to be regulated, right? We could broaden that and say our responsibility as partners and colleagues and friends, even as human beings, is to be regulated and to offer that regulating energy to the people around us. But especially in our helping professional role, when we can't do that, we can't be a cue of safety for our clients' nervous system. So this is a good way to begin to dive in and know where your growing edges are, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. There's a curious question about allergies and whether allergies can be caused by the way our nervous system is responding. What would you say?
It's a great question, and I haven't read the research on that. Recently, I've been getting people with all sorts of chronic disease kind of things, fibromyalgia, irritable bowel. I just got someone with psychogenic seizures, and all of these, the theory is, and we're seeing how it works, we're beginning to get some research. The theory is that these are all emergent properties of a dysregulated nervous system, right? And so the theory would tell us, when we help our client regulate and come to the ability to maintain that regulation, that those things will resolve. So, and I haven't heard about allergies. Nobody's asked me that before. So new question, don't know, but some of these other things, yes.
As a gastroenterologist, I can say, if you have dysregulated nervous system, your digestive system will suffer, and consequently, of course, you can get allergies. So it is a possible link there. Thank you very much. My question to you, Deb, at the end, for people who already booked on the course, would you recommend one book which would be helpful for them to read, or some article or some reading to do before the course?
Yeah, I probably, if people want a book to read, my first book, Polyvagal Theory and Therapy, it really outlines the basics. It's the one that it's my go-to one, so I would do that. If you go to my website, rhythmofregulation.com, there are a lot of recorded interviews and podcasts and things. If you don't want to buy a book, you can listen and you'll get the flavor. So, those are probably the two options. The polyvagal exercises that we're going to do some work from is the companion to the first one, but I think you really need to start with the first one to get the foundation. So yeah.
Thank you. We always put information about our sessions on SDS News on the website. So I will put both the website and the name of the book on the news. So please have a look and you will get the direct link. Well, I think our time is up. And it was a lovely session, and I feel so good. I can carry on forever. So thank you so much, Deb, for coming and seeing us all. And thank you very much to everyone who joined us today. And I really hope that it really whetted your appetite and you will come to the course to work with Deb over 3 days. And it's really doable with 2 hours per day. So thank you very much. And I hope to see you all again on the 22nd of October. And take care and have a good evening and have a good day, Deb.
Thank you. Thank you all. Be safe, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.